And this is America's Mayor live from Astana, Kazakhstan. Mhm. And we have some news from Astana to bring you today. Uh, but first, I hear that the Janet Reed verdict is back, and she was found not guilty, which seems like the right result. I mean, this was a case that certainly raised a tremendous number of suspicions. Uh, I don't know if it's a case that would have met a civil standard. I'm not sure. It certainly didn't. The point is, it doesn't reach beyond a reasonable doubt. I do not understand why the district attorney. Well, I don't understand why the district attorney brought the case. It is close enough so reasonable minds could differ, I guess. But I don't see it as a case. I mean, there are three standards of proof under the law. The highest and the most important, of course, is beyond a reasonable doubt, because they're taking your liberty away. Of course, it should be. The second middle level is clear and convincing evidence. That's usually used for very serious civil wrongdoing, like fraud. Fraud, not like the phony fraud charged against Donald Trump where there was no loss, but fraud where there was a loss, which by definition is what a fraud is all about. Although in New York, which is a lawless, crooked Democrat state, they will convict you of fraud even though there wasn't a loss. And finally, there's more likely than not. That's like 51-49, and that would be for a simple or less serious civil case. She certainly doesn't meet the two top standards, reasonable doubt, clear and convincing. Maybe she reaches the 51-49, but even there, I think it's maybe 51-49 in her favor. Um, I didn't listen to the trial in detail. I did watch two different documentaries over the time about it, and it seemed to be an inherently non-prosecutable case for failure to be able to convict. And then whatever your opinion is of a guilt, keep it to yourself. Here in Astana, there was a conference, and the conference was the conference was concerning the Pacific countries. Now this was a show really for Xi Jinping, our not so favorite individual, and I I would say if you take a look at the video that we have of those meeting, it included the president of China, Xi Jinping, the host, Kazakh President Kasim Zhoma Tokayev, who was my host later in the day, and then president of the Asian countries that are part of the China Central Asia Exchange, Trade and Education Exchange. And it was a reaffirmation by Xi Jinping of his Road and Belt program, which is now it's over a decade. And it's been really a failure in many, many places. It started off as a extremely popular thing. And then the Chinese showed that other side of them, which is called criminal, homicidal, crooked, dishonest. I'm talking the Chinese communists, not the Chinese people. And you have a lot of countries complaining they never should have gotten involved. Here he was trying to get even more countries involved, and hopefully they have the good sense not to be. Um, the host, the president of Kazakhstan, like his predecessor, Nursultan Nazarbayev, is a very, very complex, very interesting person. And this country is a fascinating country. This country was part of the Soviet Union, and at that time it was communist. But when it came out of communism, not so slowly, pretty quickly, it developed um, its own form of democracy. Uh, it's a it's actually a form of democracy that our founders debated for us, and in the long run, actually took a little bit of it. It's a presidential democracy. This is a country with a strong president and a weaker two other branches, but not without power. So they do have a check and balance on them, but on the very critical decisions, the president has the authority. Like there wouldn't be these debates over immigration and foreign policy, and now there might very well be the same debates over taxes and over imposition of money burdens and jobs and that kind of thing. So they call it quite legitimately a presidential democracy. Um, uh, the other very impressive thing, and I used to call Narvaez, who I met several times, um, the Tito of the modern age. Now, to those of you who didn't live through the Cold War, that would mean nothing. To those of you who did, it would mean a lot. Tito was a communist, and maybe Mr. Narvaez or even the present prime minister, I hope, isn't insulted by the comparison because they're not. He did have Tito did have a dark side, not as dark as the rest of them, but he had a dark side, and he probably was technically in the category of dictator, where both of these gentlemen, and this one probably even more than the last, move over in the category of not even strong men, but strong presidents, um, constitutional. I consider them Tito's because he spent a great deal of time telling me how much he likes Donald J. Trump, and quite legitimately. And this has been for quite some time. I met him years ago when he was a lower minister in government. This has been a consistent thought throughout. And he likes Trump not so much for ideological reasons, but why you tend to like another head of state. He tells you what he thinks. Even when he's about to change his mind, he lets you know. And he said to me something I've always said throughout all the time I've been in government and when I teach it. And you say that in politics, your word is your bond. There are times in politics about things that are not earth shattering or of enormous moment where you can't do what you think you can do. Then the thing to do is to go back to your uh, partner or adversary and tell them you can't. Don't string them out and make up all kinds of lies. And because no matter who you are, there are going to be things to become impossible. This happens a lot in legislative matters where you think you have the votes and you don't have the votes. And instead of making believe, you come back and say, I'm sorry, I don't have the votes. I'm going to continue to try. So he and I had a very good long discussion about that and went over some of the world leaders, all of whom you know, that he's dealt with. And he told me quite emphatically which ones you could trust, which ones you could not, and which ones you couldn't possibly understand. And he put very high on the list President Trump. I think I'm not misquoting him if I were to say, in his experience, Trump was the most effective American president. Now, this is from someone who's I don't know how you would describe this. He's an ally, but he's not, he's also an ally of Russia and China. Uh, what does that mean? That means, for example, when Russia invaded Ukraine, he was strongly opposed. That means he continues to do business with Ukraine and is in fairly constant communication with Zelensky, as he is with Putin, as he is for the last several days, for example, with Xi Jinping. Now, this could be that he's right at the crossroads of Asia. He's got on one side, he's got China, the border with China. And on the other side, he's got one of the largest borders with southern Russia. So he has to be that way. And he does it very, very effectively. This is an overlooked country that does business with the United States, but could do a lot more. And it's a rich country. For quite some time, when I was with the law firm Bracewell Giuliani, my law firm had an office here in the business city. This is Astana. Almaty is the city that most people know of because it's the one that they go to for vacations and things like that. And we had a law office there, Bracewell Giuliani, and they were kind enough to name a street after me. I inquired of the president whether they still named that way, and he didn't. He doesn't know quite that detail like the names of the streets. um, but we'll talk more about him, and hopefully we'll get him on one day to interview him. But he is a very impressive guy. Uh, a guy, let's put it this way: he's somebody we can work with, and we should. And with a president like Trump, you'll get a lot out of him because he's a very intelligent man, and it's very, very hard for intelligent people to work with stupid people like Biden. Um, well, now let's get to what's on everybody's mind. During my 1 hour meeting with President Tokayev, he was gracious enough not to ask me too many questions about what's currently going on in Israel, and I didn't bring it up, and because I wouldn't feel comfortable expressing opinions. I can't express opinion for the government and would not. But then again, it could be interpreted. You know what I mean? So I don't think we even touched on the subject, other than we hope that whatever happens gets resolved quickly and with the least amount of loss of life. This may be when Donald Trump sits back after the presidency is over, and you never know what else is coming up, right? Never know. But this may be the defining moment and the one that he looks back on the most, and the 3 or 4 days of torture, like the Bay of Pigs, not the Bay of Pigs. Well, maybe it was, but the Cuban Missile Crisis was for John Kennedy. He has to make a very crucial and important decision, and that is whether to finish. Let's call it finish the job. I don't know exactly how far Israel has gotten in dismantling the nuclear program of the Reign of Terror and the Ayatollah. They have certainly gotten very far. Have they done them all? But the very, very difficult one at Fort Dro, which is so deep into the ground it can't be reached by regular bombs and ammunition. It could be, but with multiple, possibly weeks of shelling, maybe even months of shelling. It also can be reached in a couple of hours of shelling, or maybe even less. And that's the decision that the president has to make. Number one, should he join Israel and really, as far as the nuclear program, apply the coup de grace? And the one that assures that for the rest of his presidency, probably for the rest of Netanyahu's leadership, and maybe for good, the reign of terror will not fulfill Ronald Reagan's nightmare. And the nightmare was nuclear weapons in the hands of insane, maniacal people like the Ayatollah, who has a very different view of life and death, is a strong advocate of dying as a jihadist hero. So therefore, the idea of using atomic weapons would not have the same chilling effect as it has even on evil but rational people. Certainly has a chilling effect on decent people, but even on evil people who don't want to die and don't see dying as what you're supposed to do for the cause on purpose. And so this is a very difficult moment. The president has given the Ayatollah and his leadership every possibility to negotiate. Truthfully, that was over a week or two ago. Now, in my mind, that was over when it started because I didn't think they would negotiate. In fact, I knew they wouldn't negotiate, certainly in good faith. I did think it was possible they'd sign an agreement that they then didn't follow, as they have done for all of the time they've been in existence since the original Ayatollah. They lie because they believe that it is in the interests of the caliphate to spreading it across the world to lie, the way communists do. And I was afraid that they might accept some kind of middle ground, particularly when one of the president's aides, not the president, was floating the idea that there could be some form of minimal nuclear enrichment for the reign of terror. That would have been a disaster. That would have been repeating really the mistake that Biden made, because no amount of inspection or trust and verify is going to work with the reign of terror, with the evil regime. Uh, so we are at the point where the Ayatollah has made it crystal clear he is not going to totally give up in any manner the ability to enrich uranium for the absolutely absurd purpose of peaceful use for energy when they have more energy than they're going to need, assuming they live out a natural span of years on this earth, even as a nation. They're not going to ever have any problem with energy. They have so much energy, of course, they have a big impact on the price of energy. So President Trump has to make a decision, and I don't know if it's useful to look at polls. Is it useful to look at polls? Well, I mean, they can't hurt, right? Um, the polls that exist seem to show that the American people want the president to follow through and finish the job. The poll doesn't, I don't think, precisely go into the idea of boots on the ground and long-term action there, but there's certainly an opposition to that. And there's very, very strong support, equal percentages of Republicans and Democrats, to helping the Israelis. There's narrow but majority support for finishing off the bombing. So although there is a split of about 20 to 25% of Republicans who oppose it, and that would be, I mean, that's quite a public dispute between very very good friends of mine. I, I I guess Tucker Carlson is the most vocal on the isolationist side. He doesn't see any good that can come from the United States joining in this in any way. And I think he also believes in the slippery slope theory, which is if we get involved for a bit, we're going to get involved completely. I think the president is quite determined to get involved to the extent he decides and to be in it and out quickly. I think that's his decision. Now, it is fair to Tucker to say that decision has been made before by American presidents, and we were there for 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 19 years. Honestly, I don't see. Not that I'm a genius on this either, but I don't see the elements of that because it's not a ground war. You'd have to be bombing for 19 years from afar. I don't. That's not feasible. This is not a situation where there's at least any plan that I know of to use troops of some kind. Even if you assume that behind all of this there is a regime change motive, right? then that is going to be accomplished or not based on an aerial attack, disintegration of both the military and political leadership of Iran, and what appears to be a very, very strong protest movement that sustained itself for 3 years of murder. So I do think that if, in fact, we accomplish, meaning the United States and Israel, accomplish the job of completely destroying their nuclear facility, and at the same time, their military capacity to defend themselves and also to assert themselves against their own people. Remember, this government, like China, has the capacity to kill many, many of its own people. I don't know if they've killed more of their own people than other people. They sure have killed a lot of Americans. On that basis, I do not understand the reluctance of the United States getting involved. These people have done great damage to the United States. By that, I mean the regime of terror. They intend catastrophic damage to the United States in their dreams, right? But, maybe they'll never achieve their dreams, but in the carrying out of their dreams, they kill thousands and thousands of young Americans. And they certainly kill even more than that, Jewish people. So this seems like an excellent opportunity to get rid of one of the biggest, most significant obstacles to peace in the world, certainly the single biggest obstacle to peace in the Middle East. So I expect that sometime in the next several days, those big bunker buster bombers are going to be headed for, Fordo, and possibly there may be more than one place where these locations are. There may be others that Israel has not finished off to their satisfaction, and Israel might join that attack to hit those places, or the United States might assist in those, as it is assisting in defending Israel against what is every day a reducing Iranian offensive. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. Ted?
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal, 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory. It's